welcome back to Mancinima. Hope you're all doing very well. I've worn a t-shirt today that is indicative of the movie that we're going to review. No, it's not another Spider-Man movie because they haven't made another one of those just yet, but it is one of those Sony adjacent Spider-Man movies. Now, what I mean by that is the kind of movies they put out, like Venom starring Tom Hardy, we had Morbius starring Jared Leto, and of course coming up, I think around November time, because the date may change, is Aaron Taylor-Johnson starring as Kraven the Hunter. Now, all of these characters would have been better off actually being in an actual Spider-Man movie because they play really well off of the Spider-Man character. But as Sony have chosen to do, they've decided to put them out in their separate movies. Now, this character is Madame Web. The movie is directed by S.J. Clarkson, who did some of the Netflix Marvel series like Jessica Jones and The Defenders. So she's got a bit of a Marvel kind of a pedigree, if you like. And Madame Web is a character that first appeared back in the Amazing Spider-Man comic in November 1980 in issue 210, for those of you that want to go have a look. And she's kind of she's an old lady that's connected to this giant web on a throne. And visually, she looks a little bit like Aunt May, but with this kind of a bandana over her eyes to cover her eyes up because she is blind. Now, why she has to wear a bandana when she is blind, I have no idea, but anyway, that's by the by. So yes, Madame Web is a clairvoyance, and she sits in the web of life, and anytime there's danger to any of the spin-off Spider characters and Spider-Man himself, she knows about it and she can forewarn them and kind of help them in their battle. She's appeared, as I say, in comic books, and she's also appeared quite prominently in the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon series, which was very popular at the time. In this movie, she's played by Dakota Johnson, who you may remember from the 50 Shades of Grey movies, and she's playing Cassie Webb. Now, Cassie Webb, completely different backstory in this movie. She's a paramedic, and she goes about, rescuing people, and she's in the trailer. She's on this train one day, and when she gets a sudden psychic flash forward, if you like. Do you know the kind of thing that you get in Final Destination when the boy's sat on the plane and he sees a disaster happening and it kind of flashes forward, he sees all the disaster, and then it flashes back to him being in real time, and he has to go and save the day. It's a similar thing happening to Cassandra Webb in that she's sat on this train and she sees these random girls who she apparently doesn't know anything about getting into danger, and this guy marching down the train to kind of take them on and to destroy them. She warns the girls, gets them off of the train in the trailer, and is therefore their protector. Now, the character that they're running away from is a character called Ezekiel Sims, and he's played by Tahir Rahim, I believe is the way you pronounce his name. In the comic book, he was he was almost like a hero, and he had very similar powers to Spider-Man. A very wealthy man, just dressed in a pair. It's strange, actually. He used to go around with no shoes on, but with this suit on, with this grey, weird hair. But in this movie, they've decided to make him similar to another character from the Spider-Man comics called Morlun. Now, Morlun, he's kind of like a vampire. He would go and drain the life from them. And that's what he's intending to do with these three girls. And so it's up to Cassandra Webb to protect these three girls and stop that from happening. And also in this movie, rather than the grey-haired old man, he appears like a normal human being, and also in this similar kind of a Spider-Man suit you may have seen in the trailer. So that's a couple of differences from the comic book. Now, each of these three girls that Madame Web has to protect have had some kind of a contact with her in the past. She's either bumped into them or spoken to them and had kind of a casual meeting with them in some way or form. The three girls in question also have spider powers of their own, which I don't know at this stage whether Madame Web is aware of. You've got Sydney Sweeney, she's starring as Julia Cornwall, or Julia Carpenter, and she goes on to become a Spider-Woman. Now, what's interesting about her character is that in the comic books, when Madame Web passes away, spoiler alert, I don't think it'll happen in this movie, so I think you're okay. I think Sony are going to stick with Dakota Johnson for a little while. When Madame Web passes away in the comic books, she inherits her powers and she becomes the next Madame Web. You've also got Celeste O'Connor starring as Mattie Franklin. Now, she's known as another Spider-Woman. And you've got Isabella Merced, and she's playing Anya Corazon, and she's known as Spider-Girl. So you've got two Spider-Women, which might be confusing in this movie. They may rename them in the movie, I don't know. And a Spider-Girl. And of course, Madame Web, Cassandra Webb, has to protect them all from Ezekiel. Now, that's all I know about the plot at this point. So what I'll do is I'll go and see the movie. If there's anything else that I think is worth filling in, I'll tell you when I get back. Obviously, nothing spoilerish. I don't want to spoil anything for you. I'll let you know where there are any end credit scenes as well. And I won't tell you what they are, so I'll just tell you that they're there. And of course, we'll review the movie for you. So let's get going. Let's go down to the cinema and let's go and watch Madame Web. Right, here we are then. We are just heading into Odeon and we're just going to go and see Madame Web. So I'll let you know what it's like once I get out. So here we are back in the room. I must apologise, I did intend to get this video out for you on Wednesday, but unfortunately I had a couple of things that kind of delayed me getting out of the cinema, and then I got delayed getting home, and there's a couple of things I had to deal with here. And then on Thursday I had to shoot off to London, so Friday morning, here we are. Let's talk about Madam Web. If you're going to go into this movie expecting a movie on the calibre of Spider-Man No Way Home, with greatly refined characters, a strong storyline, and an emotional punch, you're not going to get that in this movie. You're going to be disappointed. If you are a Spider-Man diehard fan and you know the story of Madam Web from back in the 1980s through to present day, through the old 1990s Spider-Man cartoon series, and you're expecting a kind of a faithful adaptation of that character, then again you're going to be disappointed. And if you're going into this movie, having seen the trailer, expecting to see the three girls spider up in their costumes and taking on Ezekiel, the supervillain, then again you are actually going to be disappointed. So loads of disappointments there. Let's talk about the film itself. I felt that what had happened is that somebody had written a first draft of this movie, went through it, handed it off to production, without even saying they wanted any refines, said, yeah, that'll do, let's take that and let's rush it off to get this film made. And then they went off and made it, and they looked at the first edit and said, yeah, that'll do, let's put it out in the cinemas. And the whole thing just feels like that. It just feels like it's kind of rushed. It's almost like, I know there's this rumour that Sony have got this deal where they have to put out a Spider-Man movie. I think it's every 2 years. And this was one of the ones to get out just to meet that deadline. And I think that's what's happened with this movie. I do believe there was a number of script revisions, a number of other things that have changed in the background, but I don't 100% know what that is. So what have we got in this film? We've got some clunky dialogue. We've got a story that's kind of strung together. If you like, you can almost imagine this film being blocks like this, and they're strung together with a web, because they don't meet, they don't match up. They're just kind of swinging around all over the place. It's a little bit long at the beginning. It takes a long time for the characters to get to build some kind of a banter. By the end of the film, they are kind of, that's a shame. You do feel like they're kind of getting there with the girls and with Madam Web at the end of the film. You feel that there's some kind of a chemistry going on. But at the beginning of the film, it does feel very forced, and it's not quite jamming, if you know what I mean. It's almost like being in one of those awkward situations where someone's in a room and they tell a joke and it doesn't quite match, and you're kind of looking at one another feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So there's that kind of a feel about it. The movie is set in 2003. I felt that the way it was shot and the way that it was presented, the whole thing comes across as like a cheap budget. I remember a movie from 1990, Captain America, starring Matt Salinger as Captain America. And you can tell they were trying their best. They put the costume on the guy. They had a red skull in the movie. But you could tell the whole thing was on the cheap. And that's how this film felt. It felt like it was on the cheap. It felt like it was so rushed and so put out. And I think that's a great shame, because I think if you read between the lines and you look at what they had on the screen, if they just tightened a few things up, dropped a few other things out, and refined the direction, refined the characters, and definitely refined the dialogue, they could have actually had something quite good in this one. I didn't ever think, when I heard Madam Web was being announced as a movie, that I'd ever want to see a movie about Madam Web, because I always found it kind of boring in the comics and boring on the cartoon. But what they've kind of refined here is there's something good in there somewhere. You just kind of feel that if they'd have just fixed it a little bit more, then they actually could have probably had a really decent kind of Sony spin-off movie here. Dakota Johnson is very likeable in her part. I thought she gave a very good performance, as did the girls. But the story that I probably would have gone with is that she discovered, because in this movie the girls haven't got their powers, and Ezekiel wants to hunt them down and destroy them so that they don't destroy him when they've got their powers. What I would have done is to have the girls having just had their powers and they're learning to be themselves, and Cassandra Webb just having her powers, and she's beginning to learn, and for the four of them to form together in order to take down like this really bad foe. This foe who's got so much power that they need the four of them to defeat him. And again, Ezekiel, he's a weak villain. He's a cross between Morlun, who is like an energy vampire, a spider vampire, if you like. He wants the energy of the spiders, and the Ezekiel character. He's a mishmash of the pair of them. Why they didn't just use Morlun himself, I don't know. Again, the costume's got nothing to do with either character. The costume that he wears is kind of a Spider-Man spin-off kind of costume, and they put that in there just to attract the Spider-Man fans into the movie. The girls themselves, as I say, if these girls have been in training and they already had their costumes, you could have had that nice big end battle scene where they're all in their costumes taking on Ezekiel, and it would have made the movie worthwhile. But you know, if you want to see the girls in their costumes, I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think the girls are on screen in those costumes for a minimum of probably 30 seconds. You see it in a flashback when Ezekiel's having a nightmare, and then you see it at the end of the film where it kind of flashes forward and Madam Web's had her eyesight taken away, and she's in her costume and the other girls are in their costumes. The shot that they use is actually quite hilarious because they're all stood against this backdrop in a very superheroic moment. You know, I think it's the backdrop of a building or something, and they've all got their costumes on, but it's so CGI and it's so weak, and it just feels like one of those dodgy adverts. You know, when you see an advert where they're pretending to be superheroes, like maybe like insurance salesmen, and they all go, "I am insurance salesman, man." They got like a white cape on or something and a pair of underpants over their trousers. It felt like one of those, and it did actually make me giggle to see it like that. It just looked so cheap. If this movie had been refined very well, if it had been a stronger, like I said, stronger script, stronger direction, tighter edit and stuff like that, and you did add a decent movie out of it, then I could quite see the possibility of going forward with these three girls and exploring their individual stories. As it is, I don't think Madam Web is actually going to do that well at the cinema. I don't think it's going to do very well at all. Another couple of things I want to say is there's a big kind of plot that's introduced in the middle, which I think is absolutely unnecessary. It's just to tie the whole thing into the Spider-Man mythos. And you've got Emma Roberts playing May Parker. You've got Adam Scott, and he's playing Ben Parker. He's a friend paramedic of Cassandra Webb. And Emma Roberts' character is pregnant. And obviously you know that that's going to be Peter Parker. You know, that's Peter Parker's mother you're seeing on the screen, but it's set in 2003. But they skirt around the issue of actually saying Peter's name. Not once in that movie is Peter's name uttered. They have this naming ceremony. They go to a house, they have a baby shower, and they're about to announce the name of the baby. And then Cassandra has this flash forward of what's going to happen, and then she dashes out of the house. So you never get that name of the baby on screen. And I just found it very, very bizarre that they would even bother to do that. You know, why would you include this whole moment and this whole sequence just to kind of have this very, very, very loose connection to the Spider-Man character? Just seems strange. Like I said, I don't think Madam Web is going to do great at the box office. For what it is, like I say, clunky dialogue. I felt like an unfinished film. You're going to be disappointed if you want to see the girls in their costumes, because that's not going to happen. You see it in, like I say, 30-second flashback. So you've got all those negatives about the film. However, I sat there and in a weird way, I just took it for what it was. I didn't think it was part of the Spider-Man universe, even the Sony universe. I kind of sat there and watched it as if it was one of those old 1990s pre-superhero movies before they refined how to make a superhero movie, you know what I mean? And I just took it for that, and I kind of enjoyed it on its own merits. It wasn't a disaster of a film. It wasn't something that was unwatchable. It was watchable enough. She was likable enough. And I came out kind of, I enjoyed it for what it was. It is what it is, like I said, I don't think we'll see a sequel to it. But anyway, that's Madam Web. What I would give it out of 10, I would give that movie a 6 out of 10. And that's literally just over the average because I enjoyed what I saw without taking it too seriously, really. Let me know what you think down in the comments if you're going to go and see Madam Web at the cinema. Or you might want to just wait for it to turn up on Sky. It's one of those sit down and watch it on an afternoon kind of films, and then you can turn it off if you want to, if you're not that bothered about it. We got Craven the Hunter at the end of the year, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one, won't it? If you've enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for everybody who takes the time to subscribe and to click on the thumbs up button and to come and have a chat with me in the comments. I appreciate you guys, The other ones, they're a little bit strange. But yeah, if you've enjoyed this video, please do the usual. Please click on the thumbs up button. It really does help the channel out. If you're brand new to the channel, please come and subscribe. That's all free, as is clicking on the thumbs up. Doesn't cost you anything, doesn't suck your soul out or anything like that. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll know when I've done another one of these videos. And of course, come and have a chat with me down in the comments. If you've seen Madam Web, if you're a Spider-Man fan, let me know what you thought about the movie. Right, that is it for this review. I will see you all very soon.